the Mississippi State Athletic Department may owe Steve Robertson for having to go to Lexington and watch that on Saturday night. Mississippi State loses 24-2. Blake, give me that stat again. 229 games.
229 straight games in Mike Leach's career that his offense scored a point. Field goal or a touchdown, scored a point.
All right.
That streak ended Saturday.
They threw 6 picks, 0 for 5 in the red zone, 24-2. Kentucky won. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries on Lakeland Drive. Blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries. We welcome in Steve Robertson. On the Miller Lite guest line, you're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. All right, Steve, I don't even know where to start, but 6 picks is going to get you in 0 for 5 in the red zone is obviously going to get you beat every Saturday. What is realistic for Mike Leach, for this offense, and whoever's going to play quarterback going forward?
Well, the first thing that I'll say is, in this league or any league or the Pop Warner Leagues of America or whatever, when you struggle in the red zone and you turn the football over, you're not going to beat anybody. I don't care who lines up; they can play with 10. If you're out there throwing the football to them, especially at opportune moments like Mississippi State did. And listen, there's so much blame to go around too, and it's easy to say, okay, well, KJ Costello, and listen, he's not playing with any confidence. He's very tentative. You can tell mechanically he just doesn't believe in what he's doing. But some of that, too, is you got 3 rushing against 5, and for 2 straight weeks, SEC opponents were able to get pressure off the edge. And as a result, you've got guys in the face, and so he's not stepping into throws. Then you've got some receivers out there letting the balls go off their hands and sometimes not really competing for the football. And so while those interceptions go under KJ Costello's stat line, and I'm not defending KJ, I'm just saying – it is not as simple as, okay, let's go change the quarterback. I mean, you've got to get better protection. You've got to get better play from the wide receivers. In the interception just before the half, it's basically a touchdown pass that goes off Jaden Wiley's hands and into a Kentucky defenders. And then the play before, Malik Keith's wide open in the back of the end zone, and KJ just airmails it and doesn't give a guy a chance to compete there. So it's a little more complex than just a quarterback situation. There's room on this offense for improvement everywhere. And I did think that, there's been so much made about Leach's comments about purging some malcontents, but lost in all of that is that the thing he says on offense, we're just not coaching very well right now. We got to coach better. And so there's just enough blame to go around from the coaches to the players to backups to Waterboy, everybody.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com on the Miller Lite guest line. Did you see the post on your board from the Washington Cougar guy? And if so, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I did see it, and it's actually we've had a couple of visitors that have come by and just said, hey, listen, this is part of the process, and you'd like for it to be a little more advanced, but the bottom line is, you're going through a culture shift and a very dramatic change in offensive philosophy, and so as a result of that, there's going to be some growing pains, and listen, that helps a little bit, I guess, because you start thinking about the long term, but the bottom line is, you got Mississippi State fans right now wondering if they can win another game. And as we always do in the state, when one team is excelling on one side of the ball and the other team's not, people are already playing the Egg Bowl in their minds. They're thinking, oh, my gosh, we're going to get killed in the Egg Bowl. Because that's the one thing you just can't live with. Even in a bad year, you start thinking, well, even in a bad year, we got to find a way to get that trophy. And so, yeah, I think, it helps to have some people that have some knowledge of the scheme and the knowledge of Leach to say, you know what, this is it's going to get better, and but it may get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. What do you expect? All right, 3 o'clock Saturday. Will Rogers takes the first snap or KJ Costello?
If I had to call it today, I'm saying Will. And, Leach was a little bit coy, but he left a little bit of room for interpretation where he goes, hey, I got to go back and watch the film. But what I hear in that is that, yes, there is a possibility that we make a change with a starting quarterback. If there wasn't, he would just come out and say, hey, listen, KJ's earned the job. Will's time will come. But, we're going to go with KJ. But then again, too, maybe he's talking to KJ through the media. I mean, you just don't really know. But I do think it is a possibility. And if I had to call it today, I think maybe you go with Will, and maybe you script some things out, things that he's comfortable with, and get him going. But I've read some of the criticism too of Will, and I think it's a bit unfair. People forget he hadn't been able to really be a part of things for a couple of weeks. And he comes back out, and I thought really the first drive he played very much within himself. And you go down and you throw the ball up to Osiris Mitchell, and that was really kind of a bit of an improvisation there, where he kind of waggles to the right and just leaves the ball a little bit inside, and the Kentucky defender wrestles it away from him. And we've had some receivers in the past, that could probably have made that play. I don't know that Osiris Mitchell capable of kind of wrestling that thing away or not, but I thought Will did a good job. And you go back and say, well, you had the interception, another would-be interception. Again, that's a true freshman quarterback out there on the road trying to mount a comeback. And I thought there was something to build from there. And I don't know if you say that, well, he's the guy this year. Maybe not. But if he's the guy next year, maybe you get him more reps this year and prep him for next year.
All right. So the thing today is that this offense can't work in the SEC. That if they do the 3-man front and drop 8, that Leach doesn't run the ball enough to keep the defenses honest enough in the SEC. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe at all that the air raid can't work, because it has worked. I mean, Hal Mumme drove people crazy, for years when he was here, just because, granted you had, Tim Couch, a future number 1 pick there, but, you're going to have to run it a little bit more to keep people honest. And I think, that's something, Mike, I'm hoping when they review the film, they say, hey, you know what, we got to do a better job here, because those linebackers, when they bail out and try to get into their drops, they're giving you 5 yards. All you got to do is clear containment, and you got to run them out of it. You've got to run them out of that 8-man zone. And, and Mike Leach has won a lot of football games. He doesn't need me or you or who was it, Bob from Boca Chica, reared his ugly head. He doesn't need Bob from Boca Chica to have a clinic and tell him, okay, coach, you got to go do this. And the first thing people do is say, oh, well, he's hard-headed. Mike Leach has won a lot of ball games being hard-headed, doing things his way.
140 games.
You just got to be patient. I know that doesn't feel good today. And, listen, if I'd have had to record a show yesterday, it wouldn't have been very fun either. But, listen, I can't sit here and tell everybody it's going to be okay this year, because it may not be. But I think you just stay the course, let him get his guys in, because the same people that are, like, advocating to fire the coaching staff and, put John Cohen in prison and bulldoze the football stadium, the same people are the ones that told you, back in March we didn't have the players to run this scheme. And so now we're kind of seeing evidence of that we don't have the players to really run this scheme. And so you just got to stay the course and hope for the best. And you may take more lumps this year than you expected. But I think most people expected this to be a 5-5 year. And after what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I think some Bulldog fans are thinking, can we even get to 5? And that's a real question.
Steve Robertson on the Miller Lite guest line. You're listening to the Out of Bounds show. MSU loses 24-2. Yeah, I mean, it's nonstop. I mean, you know how SEC guys are. Once they get on something, they're not going to get off of it. So, I mean, my phone, along with your board, I mean, people are convinced he's got to run the ball more and that the true air raid is not going to work. I tend to agree with you. A guy who's won 140 Power 5 games, and yes, it worked at Kentucky years ago, you would think it could work again when he gets the right guys in place. That LSU game did not do him any favors either, which is weird to say, even though they won. Blake, you got a question for Steve Robertson?
Yeah, Steve, to piggyback off what you
Before you jump out the window?
Well, yeah, right. I've been on ledge watch all day. You said something about running the football, and that's all well and good. And it's easy to say, well, if you're not throwing the ball well, let's run the ball more to be balanced. But at the end of the day, isn't every defense
balance is nonsense, by the way.
Isn't every defense unstoppable if they get pressure with 3 guys? I mean, that's just not realistic. To give up pressure against 3 rushers on a consistent basis is beyond reasonable to expect any offense to succeed, because a defense that doesn't need more than 3 to get pressure is never going to give up passes.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because of the fact that you've got 8 guys covering 5. And listen, it's so funny to read Bob from Boca Chica's post out there where he breaks down zone coverage and basically tells you that everybody's double covered. Well, that's not how zone coverage works. But go ahead, go off. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like you don't have to be some defensive guru when you can just line up three. And where I've seen, to be honest with you, where I've seen the biggest failures has been on the interior. I mean, it's like you're getting pushed right in the quarterback's face. Yeah, sometimes you get beat off the edge and he's got to go, extend the play a little bit or get outside. But the bottom line is, it just seems like no matter who the quarterback is, just about every time they drop back, especially in obvious passing downs, you're getting pushed right in the middle. And you thought they tried to change some of that this past week because they started James Jackson at center instead of Cole Smith. But that's the thing that I think if you look at right out of the gate, that's got to be job one fix is you've got to give the quarterback a little more time to throw the football, because you're not even giving the receivers a chance to get out there and, find holes in the zone and kind of sit down and work back to the quarterback, because he's having to make a decision so quickly and oftentimes before the receivers are even ready to go.
All right. A&M's coming into town for Mississippi State, and who knows what is even realistic at this point for Leach and the staff and the personnel and the quarterback. I mean, this is a total guessing game, isn't it, from here on out, as far as the productivity level that they may or may not have on offense?
Well, I think that's fair. And, it's so crazy, too, as you think, what you know about Mike Leach. I mean, could you really bet against him? Think, okay, well, he's not going to surprise somebody down the stretch. Yeah, probably. And what you know about Jimbo Fisher, he finally gets a signature win. Could you see them come up here being flat and go through the motions? Yeah. I just don't know at this point if Mississippi State has enough continuity or confidence on offense to really exploit that. But I do know this, that Mississippi State defense is playing outstanding, and this is so reminiscent of 2018. I mean, it's like you can take those same message board posts from a couple of years ago and just run them again, because you got an elite defense out there that's playing among the best in the country, and then you can't find any rhythm or continuity on offense. And, that was the big thing in 18. You had the number one defense in the country, and you didn't benefit from that because you couldn't do things offensively. That's how this feels today. Can they change it? I think Mike Leach is a better coach than Joe Moorhead. I think he will find some success, but it's a shame that this defense is not getting more help from the offense.
Who's your MVP on defense?
Man, that's a great question. I don't know that I wouldn't go with Marquise Spencer. I mean, I think that guy has made himself some money already. And here's the thing about that kid is when he hits you with bad intentions, and you know it. I mean, like, there are times we kind of exaggerate. When he hit K.J. Jefferson on the goal line here a couple weeks ago, it's almost like you could hear the air escaping K.J. Jefferson's lungs. He hit him so hard. I mean, it was just surreal to see that. But it's no matter who they put on him, no matter if they try to chip him, it seems like every play he's in the backfield. And I think he's played well. I think Fred Peters had a good game, on Saturday. But, if I had to give it to anybody, I'd give it to Marquise. But let's be honest, Zach Arnett's the hero of this team right now. And he didn't hire a single one of these defensive coaches. I mean, it's not like he brought his staff with him. This goes to show you what a great coach he is. He's coming in here with somebody else's coaches and against somebody else's players, and he's got this team that was expected to be among the worst defenses in the SEC, among the best in the country.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that looks going forward. They're playing well, and their personnel's okay. He seems to be coaching well and scheming it up and play calling really well too. All right, back to offense. Kylan Hill, how they've got to get him going early, whether it's running or through the passing game. Do you think that will be a huge focus and emphasis this week?
That's a good question, and I think it's one of those things too. Kylan is clearly frustrated. I mean, and you can see it in his social media posts. You can see it in his body language. And listen, it's one of those things. Who could really blame him? He was the guy too that got his feedback from the NFL last year, decided to come back and polish his game, and all of his posts, social media wise, leading into the season was how excited he was to play on the offense. And I'm sure he feels underutilized. And with every one of these games where he doesn't have a big game, I'm sure he knows it's probably costing him money. And so I think, number one, he's got to settle down a little bit. You see some of his body language on the sideline and you think, what's going on with that guy, So, yeah, you got to get him involved, but I think it's not just him. I think it's the running back position entirely. I mean, you're checking it down some to him, but I think you've got to be a little more innovative with the route scheme they run. I mean, you just keep flaring it out there and checking it down and hoping they can break a tackle on these younger guys. It's tougher for them to do it. But there are no easy answers at this point when you've been a run-heavy team and your star running back is is not really the focal point of the offense right now, and there's going to be a rub there, and I think it's evident at this point that he's frustrated.
What did you make of Leach's post-game press conference?
I didn't really have a problem with any of it. I mean, it's like, I guess it's one of those things too. If you've ever been in leadership, you understand the accountability piece, and it's like people say, like ESPN doesn't even cover the dadgum game. They don't even attend the press conference or anything, and they go write an article and talk about Mike Leach is throwing the players under the bus. But the first thing he said is that as coaches, we got to coach better. We're not getting good coaching on offense. That's where it starts. Well, of course, that doesn't make the article because it doesn't give you your hot take. But sometimes you got to motivate people. That's one of the things as a coach. Sometimes you got to have a guy sit out a snap. Other times you got to sit somebody on the bench, and sometimes you got to cut somebody for the betterment of the team. And if he's got some guys on the team that perhaps that are detrimental to the success of the program, then as he has a responsibility as the head football coach at Mississippi State to address that and to eradicate that problem. And that's the thing people forget. He didn't get the benefit of the spring to kind of figure out who he couldn't count on. And so you're kind of learning on the fly. So will there be some guys lead the program? I think in season's end, certainly. But could there be a midseason change? I don't expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised either.
Blake, anything else?
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, not to just rain on what is already an incredible day, but defensively, when you watch Alabama throw the ball, when you watch Ole Miss throw the ball, when you watch Missouri play the way they did against LSU, it makes me ask two questions. One, defensively, where are you realistically? Because you've gone up against Kentucky, who can't throw it, and Arkansas, who still is not where they need to be talent-wise, although Kendall Brow's scheme certainly looks to be putting them much better offensively than they were last year. You gave up 27 to LSU, who's the best offense you've faced so far, and Bo Pelini, if he had played 5 minutes of zone, they might not have lost that game. Where realistically is Mississippi State? Because I don't want to say that not that the defense isn't playing well, but I mean, you still have not played the, I guess, upper echelon of. You really played 3 winnable games, Steve.
Well, I think a lot of it too is the defense made those winnable games. That's the thing when you look at all the problems and how anemic the offense has been. The fact that State would still win those ball games in the fourth quarter is a testament to the defense. But it is a much more prolific game this year. And I'll be honest with you, I thought State would be losing games the way Ole Miss is losing games. I mean, I think if we were all honest with ourselves, we're going to get beat 56-42 or something like that. And that's the thing I think that really upsets Mississippi State fans. It's like, hey, we are all going through this together, us and Arkansas, Missouri, and Ole Miss. We all got new coordinators and new coaches and new systems and all of that. Well, why are we having this kind of issue and those teams aren't? You look at what Ole Miss has done. They're very prolific on offense. And, listen, I don't buy into all this signal calling stuff or stealing stuff. And you know what? If you steal it, that's part of the game. I mean, I was a baseball coach. I understand how much fun it is to know what the other team's going to do. But, at the end of the day, you got the most prolific offensive mind in the game is your head coach, but you're the team that is struggling the most to kind of implement your system. And listen, Ole Miss and Missouri and Arkansas didn't get spring either. And so Mike Leach has got to figure it out and get this thing moving forward.
Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, genespage.com on the Miller Lite guest line. Steve, we'll catch up again later in the week. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. So, Blake, do you feel better?
Of course not.
Okay. It's been a rough Monday for you.
It's therapeutic to get it off your chest, right? No, I mean, in all honesty, like what Steve said about Mike Leach is true. This is not unknown. His MO is well documented, and maybe for better or worse, you get what you get with Mike Leach, and he will not change that. Is Mississippi State going to be the final stop on his path where it finally doesn't work? That would be, I guess, the question.
Right now, I could be wrong, okay? A year from now, he still may not be moving the ball. Right now, today, I'm going to go with Mike Leach and his track record of he's won 140 games.
I'm with you.
As a Power 5 head coach at 2 places that people can't find on a map.
No, I'm with you.
To these guys that have already said, drop 8, it can't work. They got to run it more. It's not going to work, period. I've already decided. A lot of these guys decided it when he was hired.
I'm with you, but none of that matters. See, I love the idea about, you have to run it more, you have to do this against it is literally irrelevant. Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, enter greatest quarterback name you can think of here. If they are getting pressured with 3 rushers, they will not win. It doesn't matter who you are. You could have Randy Moss out there as your receiver, and it wouldn't matter.
Right.
Because
you're only sending 3 and you're getting pressure.
If you're getting pressure with 3 guys, it's literally like that's not even something it should never. That happens once a game, maybe. It should never happen consistently. It's mind-blowing that their offensive line is that bad. 5-on-3, they get beat consistently.
Yeah. And Dollar Bill got beat.
I mean, it's
Charles
not like
Cross
KJ. Again, KJ doesn't look like he's throwing the ball well.
No.
But there's no time for him to even make a decision on some throws. And that's where we talk about seeing ghosts. Quarterbacks get worse through the season when they feel like they're getting pressured as soon as they take the ball because they're going to look to throw it quickly. We've seen it with guys like Darnold, Baker Mayfield. We see it all the time. So for KJ Costello, is he playing well? Of course not. He's playing terrible. But he takes the ball and he's hit a second and a half later.
Got to get it right on the offensive line for sure this week. Can you imagine with A&M coming in? Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Any age, any sport, any injury, they've got you covered at Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center, MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Brad Edwards on Ole Miss at 9:30 and in the Lane Train. We're watching that game, by the way. It's on. Are we on the SEC network? Or?
No, we're watching it from like the ESPN app.
Oh,
basically.
You pulled it up on our deal.
Replay.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we're watching the Ole Miss Bama game right now. It's 30. It was 35-35, and Bama just scored, and it's like 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in the third quarter to go up 42-35. Hell of a game if you love offense and scoring points and yards and explosive plays.
I mean, it's amazing that both teams are 1-2, and the attitudes and atmospheres could not be even remotely different. Closer.
Ole Miss is on cloud 9. Mississippi State is doom and gloom. And this thing can't work.
The craziest part about this is somehow it is. This is. I can't believe this is the truth. It feels like somehow State fans would be happier if they had lost LSU and beaten Arkansas, which makes no sense. But it really does feel that way. It's like beating LSU screwed everybody's head up so much that even though they're 1-2 and they could have been 1-2 in week 3 anyways, it just would have been Arkansas instead of LSU, they'd have been happier. It's the weirdest thing.
But once you do that to a sports fan, you can't shake it. The LSU win and high
made people feel like that 6-4 was 100% attainable.
You can't. I don't care how much you shower, you cannot wash what happened. And so once you get in that mindset, we're all guilty of it because we're sports fans. But once you get in that mindset, oh, wow, 600 yards passing, beat LSU at home, you can't shake it. And so they're going to be battling that game for the rest of the year. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Went McGee, the Mortgage Man. He'll shop the best rates for you, mortgagemanms.com. Brad Edwards on Ole Miss at 9:30.